the first thing I'm going to ask is a lot of people here have grown up idolizing Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger.
Yeah, sure.
And they're two of the largest critics of Bitcoin, right? Some of these questions around, this has been a bullish conversation. Let's talk about some of the downsides. But to quote them, Buffett said, probably a rat poison squared, not unsquared, squared.
Yeah.
And then disgusting and contrary to the interests of civilization. Now, they're not talking about you, they're talking about Bitcoin. So if you could talk to them, like, what would you ask them to consider?
First, I'd say to you, I would not want to be judged by my worst moment, so I'm not going to judge them by theirs, right? The reality is Bitcoin just doesn't care what Warren Buffett thinks. It just doesn't care. Bitcoin doesn't care what Charlie Munger thinks. It doesn't care what Jamie Dimon thinks or Larry Fink thinks or Paul Craig. It just doesn't care. Bitcoin doesn't care what I think. It's much bigger than all of us. Buffett's rat poison comment is interesting. I wonder what Buffett would say if he was at dinner tonight in El Salvador with a family that didn't have to travel 10 hours on a bus, that got $99.8 instead of $100, that didn't have to risk their life against the gangs. And he was sitting across the table from them. And that was made possible because of Bitcoin. I wonder what Buffett would say at that dinner. Munger's comments, contrary to the interests of civilization, I find that also pretty interesting because, there's various measures of a healthy society. One of the measures is the willingness to undertake long-term projects, particularly projects that will outlast our lives. So I know that you are into Scotland and Scottish soccer. Nick Carter is a great writer and thinker in Bitcoin, has an interesting framing about cathedrals. So think about a Scottish cathedral, one that was built 800 years ago, so maybe around 1300. It took 150 years to build. And let's say we go back in time and you and I are masons and laborers putting those final stones to the top of that 150-year project. One thing we know, our fathers worked on the project, our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, our great-great-grandfathers, and our great-great-great-grandfathers. What that whole lineage had in common is one thing. They knew for sure they would not see the project to its fruition. They would die before it was complete. Yet, they whistled to work every day because they thought they were working on something bigger than themselves. What were they working on? They were working on an 80-foot cathedral. They're working on an experience that when a peasant comes in from the countryside, who's never seen man make anything taller than 6 or 8 feet and stands at 80 feet, and he sees something in the corner that he just slack-jawed, which is light that's got colors, stained glass, and he's just in awe and cannot speak. Now, that was built to the glory of God. Bitcoiners believe in a better monetary world. We're the Masons, we're the laborers of today, and we're working on a new monetary cathedral, And just like our great-great-grandfathers in that example, too, we will never see the fruits of our labor in its full form. We are building the base layer, the initial stones of the Bitcoin cathedral. We are working on something bigger than ourselves. We are working on sound money for humanity. That's what we're working on. Rat poison, contrary to the interests of civilization, what I would say to that is I don't care, because I don't. Because I'm over here working on what I'm working on, building that base layer of that monetary cathedral.
Interesting.